All right, the Roman imperial coinage is studied in two different periods, numismatically and historically. The first part is between 27 BC, when Augustus simply changed the face of the Roman Republic and turned it into an empire. And it ends in 491 when Anastasius is ascended to the Roman throne and introduced some fundamental changes to the monetary system. So we're going to talk about a history of the Roman coinage of 500 years. And as you can appreciate, it's extremely difficult to talk about something so enormous in 2 hours. But I did my best to put together a presentation that will give you some ideas about the Roman coinage. What we're going to share today is a glimpse of what is available. It's something something very little. But I trust some of the topics that we'll be talking about today will pique your interest, and you can further research and find other items about them. And as the series are introduced, this is just an introduction to ancient numismatics. So we're not really talking about a particular issue, but just talking about general coinage in the Roman imperial period. Okay, so while Julius Caesar began the transformation of the Roman state from republic to empire, his grandnephew Octavian, later called Augustus, completed the task and laid the foundations for centuries of world rule. This is actually an interesting topic. And while I was researching for the Roman usurpers, I simply felt that Caesar was the first usurper, actually. Just because he was successful in his bid doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't usurp the power from the hands of the Roman Senate. And second greatest usurper is, of course, Octavian. But they managed their business so perfectly, so professionally, so systematically, that even though everybody knew that they were illegitimate, they were accepted as legitimate rulers. And that was something unprecedented in the Roman Republic. Yet, the whole idea of giving power to one person had to be accepted. And both Caesar, laying the foundation of that idea, and Octavian cementing the idea were extremely important in the history of Roman Empire. So the first step was Caesar putting his own likeness on his coinage. That was a taboo in the Roman Republic, having a living person to appear on a coin, claiming that they were kings and it was a republic, and how dare a person can act like a king and put his likeness on a coin. And it was accepted, albeit for a short time, maybe 1 or 1.5 months. And then the tradition continued by putting Caesar's image on his coinage after he died. And then Octavian having his image. Of course, all the others who fought supposedly for the Roman Republic didn't have any issues displaying their images on their coinage later on. And finally, Augustus rescuing a title, again, that was not given to any other official in the Roman Republic. He was so meticulous about his position. He wanted to make sure that he would not be seen as a dictator. Speaking of the word dictator, at the moment, it is a word, it's a noun that fell from grace when we only call a person dictator to degrade his position. However, during the Roman period, it was not considered like that. It was an important post, and it was an honor to be given that title. Yet, by the time Caesar was killed and the civil war started, being a dictator was not fashionable, and Octavian knew about that, and he wanted to do something about that, and that's why I'm sure after careful study of words and concepts, he came up with this new title of Augustus. And on this gold coin, for the first time, he is proclaimed Augustus, the sublime leader of the Roman Republic still. He never acknowledged that he changed the political system. Yet he did everything within his power to rule on his own. And on this coin, he simply proclaims that he is the savior of the citizens and the Senate, and he simply completes the process of setting himself as the sole ruler. So the title is Turbinica Potestas. So he is the advocate of the people. And he's not the advocate of the powerful, rich senators. He's not the advocate of the nobility, but he is the advocate of the regular people. And we all know how true that is. And as soon as he establishes himself as the sole ruler, he wants to cement his image as the best person, the first and the best person for the Roman people. And what better way he can do that, advertising his deeds on his coinage. This is a very, very interesting coin. On the obverse is his statue right in front of the city on a pedestal, and it simply says that people in the Senate of the Romans and his title, Caesar Augustus. And on the reverse, there is a kippus inscribed, the Senate and Roman people to Caesar, because the roads have been paved out of the money which he contributed to the treasury.
Yes,
it's an amazing piece of propaganda, and also a fact that he provided funds to pave roads for people. Another piece of propaganda here, in the 1st century, we see Parthians captured the Vexillum of the Roman army, and it was a shame for the Roman army. That shame had to be erased. It had to be eradicated. And Augustus thought it was extremely important for him to retrieve the Vexillum. And he did. It was not by war, but either by bribe or by some historians claim diplomacy. He received the Vexillum back from the Parthians. And on this coin, the Parthians are decorated because the Parthian is kneeling and extending the Vexillum. It's a kind of submission to the Roman Empire. It's a pure propaganda piece, of course, but it was something important that he wanted to show on his coin. Imago Crepiata was an art form in the Roman Republic, usually used for ancestors. When you want to praise your ancestors, you would have that person's image on a shield. On this coin, we see Augustus head facing, turned slightly to right, with a recessed on the border by laurel wreath on a shield. It's a living person. It's not a deceased ancestor, yet he wanted to use this piece to earn more respect, as if he didn't have enough. But again, Augustus simply wants the Roman people see a different ruler, not a regular ruler, not a triumvir, not just the son of Caesar, not a senator, not a consul, not a dictator, a sublime personage that everyone should respect. And religion, of course, is an important part of his rule. And he is the chief priest. He is the person who protects the rights of the regular people, and he also establishes his religious cult around the Roman Empire. So this is a coin that was minted to celebrate the altar founded at Lugdunum. And on this coin, he simply advertises himself as Rome and the Augustus on this coin. And he is Rome. And whatever he does is what Rome is doing, not he is doing. This is the picture of the Roman Empire when he took over the sole rule of the realm that he operated on. So an empire spanning over 3 continents. The Mediterranean Sea roads are under his control. This is not something to be underestimated. The sea roads, zigzagging from Egypt to Anatolia, to Syria, to the Aegean world, and from Aegean world to Italy. And you can simply include the North African shores and Spain. So the the area that he controls over the Mediterranean is enormous, and it's an enormous source of wealth for whoever controls that route. And 60 legions to feed and pay. That is the challenge he has. His 30 plus legions simply swelled up to 60 legions when he defeated Mark Antony in his final bid, and some of these people expected that he pays them, and he pays them handsomely. So he had to form new colonies for the veteran soldiers. You know, he couldn't continue feeding and paying these soldiers forever. And the best way to get rid of that burden was to establish colonies and settle these people in those colonies and give them some land and shut them up. He did very, very efficiently. And finally, managing the precious metal mines. He was a genius, of course. You know, considering all of these things, yes, he had good support. He had some very, very smart people around him to give him good advice. But considering all of these things is not a small feat, and he managed them. And in the meantime, he simply kept Egypt at his personal disposal. So as if all the revenue that he gets from everything else is not enough, he simply started a tradition for all the Roman emperors for quite a long time, at least 300 years, to use Egypt as their personal money box. So the financial control, including control of coinage, was his main financial strategy. And together with Augustus, an immense output of coinage begins. He delegated the right to coin gold and silver to regional, provincial, and clan kings, as well as token coinage, copper, brass, or bronze to cities, provinces, regions. And even in Rome, when they wanted to strike coins, they needed his permission. And here I have an interesting piece from Spain, Emerita. He still uses monnayers. He hasn't abolished the monnayer system yet. And here it's his image on the obverse with the title as the officer elected by the plebeians to protect their rights from arbitrary acts of the patrician magistrates. And quite a propaganda. And on the reverse, it says envoy of the emperor. So this person, the monnayer, Carisius, simply coins as an envoy of the emperor. So he doesn't have the right to coin even a simple bronze coin, 25 millimeter size, small coin. He has his authority on it. And realizing and appreciating the importance of small change in different parts of his empire, he gave permission to certain regions to coin in base metal. So this is from Asia Minor. Nobody knows yet where these coins exactly were minted. It's curious that, you know, they are very well known and they're extensively available now, and they're very well documented, but nobody exactly knows where they were minted, even though I have some idea myself, but I'm not in a position to prove it. Anyways, in the middle of the reverse design is CA, and most people agree that it stands for Commune Asia. But one thing that that gives us a small clue is that around the laurel wreath, the laurel wreath connects on the upper side of the coin with prows of ships. So this simply suggests that it is a seaborne city. It's a city by the sea, and quite likely it is Ephesus, in my opinion, but again, there's no information about where exactly they were minted. And at that time, it also carries a propaganda meaning. They didn't need to explain that. Augustus didn't need to explain. It is his authority that allowed these coins to be minted. Who minted it was not an issue. Where it was minted, it was not an issue. It was most important that people in his empire had to understand that without his authority, nothing is going to be done. And that simply poses so many questions to all of us numismatists and historians. He has so many coins that we cannot attribute properly. So this one that you see here, I'm quite sure where they were minted. I was able to see the finding locations of these coins. It's in ancient Cilicia, and most likely a colony was formed by Octavian on the way from Egypt to Rome. He simply settled some of his veteran soldiers in an area to be named as Augusta during the time of Tiberius. So the coins are usually found in that eastern Cilician part. But of course, it only says a colonia founded by the Julian family. And we have his image on the obverse. So he's the first person in the Roman Republic at that time. And then we have these coins coming from almost the same area. I can't say that I know where these are found, but they are found in Cilicia again. And you can see the similarities of obverse images, and they all come from the same region. These coins are mostly listed on catalogs as Gaius Socius, the governor of Syria under Marcus Antonius. However, the similarity between the images simply suggests, and having no legend on the obverses and reverses, simply tells me that they were minted in the name of Octavian or Augustus at that time. Before establishing a firm coinage system, or monetary system, I should say, he saw the need for small change for the regular people on the street. So after a long time, he reopens the mint at Rome in 23 BC, just to produce ice coinage. This is something very new. Since the time of Sulla, nobody minted bronze coinage at Rome. And so to simply provide the needs of daily transactions, small business transactions, he had to provide coinage. Now, this is not just to provide for people's needs. Minting coins means making money. You provide a certain amount of metal, and you pay for the minting expenses, and you put a certain value on top of the minted metal piece, and you sell them. So how did rulers, we can consider all the rulers from the beginning, how did they manage to issue so many coins and without really having an interest in it? So Augustus continued minting gold and silver, yet he could see the need for bronze coinage, small change, and he simply met the demand. And he didn't do that just because people need it, because he could make money out of that. And he established 4 denominations, a sestertius, a dupundius, and an as, and finally quadrans. They, of course, come in different styles and different topics, but in general, the size of the sestertius is 35 millimeters and around 20 grams. Dupundius is smaller, half of its weight, and as a little smaller and even lighter, but not as heavy. And quadrans, very simple, small coins that Augustus designed for the Roman Empire at that time. And he used the Lugdunum mint to coin in gold and silver. So this is really curious. He minted coins everywhere during the Civil War, and yet after establishing himself, he chose to use a mint far from the capital. That's really curious, because he knew that coin minting is a money-making business, and the Senate had the authority before the Civil Wars to coin. And he simply wanted to keep that business away from the Senate, and used a different mint away from Rome, and managed to keep that money-making business to himself. Here is a picture of the imperial denominations that he established and lasted for about 300 years. So a gold Aurelius equal to 25 denarii, and gold Cunarius, 12.5 denarii, and then denarius, quinarius, sestertius, dupundius, copper as, samus, and quadrans, and multiplies of those denominations. Simple, but very effective and very logical system, if only it could be maintained as the way it was established, which, as we all know, is very difficult to do. All through the history, the Aurelius and the Health Aurelius maintained its quality. Most of the time, they didn't want to tamper with the quality of or the content of metal in gold. Somehow, they knew that they could not outwit people by debasing gold, and they kept it quite pure, 96%. Originally, Aurelius, it was struck at the proportion of 42 to the Roman pound. So for Augustus, it was 142 of a pound. During Nero's time, 145. Caracalla's time, 150. Gallienus's time, 162, 170. And then during the time of Valerianus Senior, they even issued smaller denominations because they needed smaller denominations in precious metal. Silver coins, they had 2 denominations, and they were the hardest to keep intact. And during the time of Augustus, it was 184 of a pound. Nero 190, Trajan 199, Hadrian kept the same, Commodus 103, and Septimius Severus 105, and it continued to decline in time. And the bronze coinage is consisted of the sestertius, mostly in orichalcum or brass. It's the same with the pondius, and as being copper, and then quadrants being copper. The pondius and as were about the same size, only distinguished by the color of the metal. The coinage patterns are interesting to observe during the Roman Empire. Augustus minted coins as required. Now here, now there, now in this metal, now in that metal, and mostly valuable coins coming from Lugdunum, and base metal coins coming from Rome. And Tiberius was a smart guy. I don't want to call him complacent, but you can call him complacent. He didn't want to do anything other than following the pattern that Augustus drew in almost everything, except for a few things. So he simply continued Augustus's pattern. Gaius Caligula, for whatever reason, not being extremely smart, but he didn't care about the Senate and other things. He simply brought the coinage back to Rome. And Claudius, since he did it why shouldn't I do it? So Claudius continued the same practice, so the minting came to Rome. Nero, after his monetary development, integrated all coinage in all metals at Rome with gold and silver in reduced weight. And Vespasian simply started regular production of coins in all metals in so many different parts of the empire. So until Vespasian, the coinage came from 2 main sources in the western part of the Roman Empire, depending on how the emperor felt about his power and position they were either minted at Rome or at Lugdunum mints. Roman coins were the newspaper of its time. The obverse is mostly reserved for the emperor with all his titles. Here I give you the anatomy of a Roman obverse, and here is the reverse. Trajan is the emperor that had the most titles. The longest title among all the other Roman emperors was that of Trajan's. So here on the obverse, he is the supreme commander, victor over the Germans and Dacians, high priest, tribune of the people, consul for the 5th time, father of the country. And if that is not enough, on the reverse, he simply says, the most perfect prince of the Senate and the people of Rome. You cannot top that. On their coinage, they used every means to advertise their power. Titus simply says that he subjugated the Jews, and Hadrian says, I distributed money to people, and Septimius Severus boasts about his dynasty with his wife and 2 children. Elagabalus, believe it or not, claimed that he was the unconquerable priest Augustus. And Philip the Arab used a radiate bust, and when they die, the coins minted after them simply showed them as devious, deified gods. So they had no limit whatsoever as to how they wanted to display themselves. The empresses had their share using their images and power on coins. Interestingly, during the lifetime of Augustus, he never let his wife Livia appear on any Roman imperial coinage. She was depicted on coins in Western Asia Minor, but there were not Roman imperial mints. There were provincial mints. Livia could only appear on coins during the time of Tiberius. And here, a coin that depicts the mother of Claudius on the obverse. And they're always associated to either the emperor or to a god or goddess. Agrippina Senior, mother of Caligula, and Domitia, wife of Domitian, and Sabina, Julia Domna, and Diva Julia Maesa, grandmother of Elagabalus and Severus Alexander. Roman deities are also advertised on Roman coins. Asclepius, the god of medicine. Ceres, Demeter in the Greek world, the goddess of agriculture. Cybele, the mother god, the mother of the gods. Diana, Hercules, Janus, Jupiter, Juno, Mars, Hermes or Mercury, Athena or Minerva, Neptune or Poseidon, Roma, Sol, Venus, Vesta, Vulcan, and Liber, Bacchus. Of course, there are more gods and goddesses. I just wanted to give you a short list of what is depicted on the coins. And then they invented something that was unprecedented again. Certain personifications for certain concepts. It's public education that was used for the first time during the Roman Empire. The images on Roman coins were usually intended to convey a message or suggest a state of being. Abundantia, abundance, and equitas, equity, ternitas, annona, clementia, concordia, justitia, fecunditas, felicitas, fides, fortuna, genius or genius, onus, laetitia, my favorite, liberalitas, libertas, victoria, and spes. There are more. These are not all the concepts that you see on the Roman imperial coinage, but these are just some examples of what we see on them. The foundation laid by Augustus lasted about 50 years, quite intact, but the successive incapable rulers ruined the Roman imperial treasury and its finances. During the time of Nero, he was only 16 years old when he became emperor, and it was his mother's philosopher, politician friend Seneca, and the Praetorian prefect that ruled the Roman Empire on his behalf for about 10 years. And in 64, he simply ousted them all, and he introduced a monetary revision in the Roman Empire, and he changed the denomination. Well, he changed the weight of coins during that time. So when he first started, the Aurelius was 7.30 grams. When he first started, the Aurelius was 7.67. It was between 760 and 780, and the denarius was around 354, and with the revision, the reduced weight came, and the Aurelius was under 750, mostly 730, and the silver was under 330, mostly. This one is a heavy one. And asses, semises, and quadrantes were also minted from orichalcum, brass. They were minted from copper. Of course, brass is cheaper than copper. It's an ally. So it's a delicate money-saving measure at that time, which didn't take very long. I guess it was not well received by the public, and after a short while, he turned back to using copper for previously copper minted coins. However, whatever happened after 64, an artistic excellence period starts, and mostly we see this on sestertius, and you see some of the most beautiful obverses and reverses on the coinage of Nero. at that time. And one of the most spectacular examples of that excellent artistry is the port of Ostia. It was, Rome was not by the sea. However, Ostia, at the mouth of River Tiber, was its major port. And they used that port from early on. Augustus did some work to improve the state of the port, but the River Tiber was carrying too much silt, and it needed work all the time. Under Claudius, a second harbor was built, and it was completed by Nero. This grand second harbor on the northern mouth of the Tiber was famous for its Varus. There was a lighthouse, as indicated here on this coin. And interestingly, it was built on a foundation created by sinking one of the hated Caligula's pleasure barges and filling it with concrete. And then you see the complete picture of the harbor together with the river god Tiber at the bottom. You can even, this is a very extremely fine example. You can even see the oarsmen and people in all those ships. Some of them are sailing, some of them are just beginning to sail, some of them have already arrived and they pulled up the sails, and some of them are using just oars, mostly military vessels, indicating military vessels. June 68 to December 69 is known as the year of 4, sometimes 6 emperors. The excessive behaviors of Nero had to come to an end, and seeing no end at the end of the, seeing no light, I should say, at the end of the tunnel, he committed suicide in June 68. In theory, the Senate and the people of Rome were supposed to be the legal supreme power, but Claudius Macer declared he is the so-called representative of the Senate. However, he died late in 68, only minted denarii during that time, which we can see here. And in 70, a 73-year-old Galba in Spain declared that he is a legatus of the Senate, supreme commander for the Senate. And he was saluted as imperator by his troops. He was emperor from June 68 to January 69, not a very long time before he was murdered by his guards, practically. However, his coinage in all metals is extensive, including provinces. At the same time, we see the revolt of Vindex, the governor of Gaul, tyranny. Some historians would like to believe that his upheaval was in support of Galba, and but unfortunately he was defeated and killed by Verginius, and Otho succeeded him until April 69. He only, oh, here is a coin of Vindex. And he didn't issue any coins in base metals. He didn't have time. He didn't last very long. And finally, Vitellius succeeded Otto from April to December 69. So yes, only 3 of these people assumed the purple, but the others were very close, and no one can say that they didn't have an eye on the purple. They also fought for that. The civil wars in that year between 68 and 69 are very, very remarkable in that they have some very ingenious slogans on them. So here is an uncertain Spanish mint bust of Libertas, and it claims that it was minted with the support of the Roman Senate and the people of Rome. But nobody knows exactly who minted that coin, other than the fact that they were minted in Spain, and Spain is the realm of Galba. And here is another coin, an uncertain mint in gold, Victor on globe holding wreath and palm, Salus generis humani, health and stability were delivered to the human race. And again, it's the people of Rome that minted that coin. And of course, we all know the image on the reverse of this coin from earlier issues. And again, it was minted somewhere in Spain, and most likely under Galba. And interestingly, it uses the same message. He is there to save the Roman Republic, not the empire. And here, while researching for this presentation, I came across this coin. It's a foray, I should say. As you see, this coin is around 3.41 grams, and this one is 2.85 grams. It's a silver-plated coin. And I always maintain that silver-plated coins were produced in official mints. And I think this is a good example to support that, that idea. While Otho was settling to his throne, Vitellius' supporters in the Rhine region plotting with the Praetorian Guard at Rome, and they issued some anonymous denarii to bribe the undecided people. And in this one, it says fides exercitum. So the fidelity of the armies and the soldiers, clasped hands, and on both sides you see the same image. And sure enough, very soon Vitellius mints coins with the same image on the reverse and the same slogans. It's a short time, but mints in different parts of the Western Europe worked day and night. They must have worked day and night to issue coins, because coins were the almost the only means to spread the news about these contesters. Vespasian, in my view, is the restorer of the empire that was at the brink of falling apart. He was first appointed to suppress the revolt in Judea in 66, after he served under Claudius in Germania, Britain, and Africa. Neros that had been followed by Galba, Otto, and Vitellius. The cost to the state had been enormous. Vespasian's estimate of the current deficit at the time of his accession was the huge sum of 10,000 million denarii. Suetonius actually gives the figures in sestertius, so 40,000 million sestertius needed to set the state upright. During his time, he made certain provinces part of the imperial realm. So Achaia, Lycia, Rhodes, Byzantium, and Samos were taken from their kingdoms or vassal kingdoms. Likewise, Cilicia, Commagene, and they were all connected to the imperial administration. And his reign lasted only 10 years, but he implemented some incredible changes to strengthen the finances of the empire. And at the same time, he saw the importance of creating a dynasty as Augustus established unsuccessfully. So from the beginning, he simply suggested that his two sons, Titus, or otherwise known Titus, and Domitian, were to follow him. And from the beginning on his coinage, we see that he advertises his dynasty. And sure enough, his sons, after he died, took the throne consecutively. Titus between 79 and 81, and Domitian between 81 and 96 were the emperors. There are some anecdotes about Vespasian that will bring some smile to everyone's faces. On a tour through Greece, among the companions of Nero, Vespasian, bitterly offended the emperor by either going out often while Nero was singing or falling asleep if he remained. At some point, ancient writers say that Nero caught him nodding. His head was falling, and he immediately ran away and hid somewhere that Nero was not able to see him. Not that he couldn't find him, but he was smart enough to hide or stay away from the gazes of the emperor, which he was quite an expert, because before Agrippina, the mother of Nero, died, he was the target of the empress. And again, he simply didn't challenge, he didn't have the power to challenge, he simply went away and hid somewhere until the empress died. Another anecdote that I would like to share with you is the saying, pecunia non olet, money does not sting. It's a Latin saying related to a tax on the disposal of urine, which was first imposed by Nero under the name Vectigal Urania in the 1st century AD. His son, Titus, simply thought that it was outrageous to impose that tax again. And it is said that Vespasian simply extended his hand holding an aureus to his son and says, "See, it doesn't stink, it's money and we need it." So he was a mule herder and a soldier. And he learned how to manage money, how to manage estates, how to manage businesses, and how to manage regions before he became emperor. So he knew about the finance, how to manage the finances of the state. And that's why I would call him the restorer of the Roman Empire in the 1st century AD. And not only his achievements in financial area, but also in renovating and rebuilding the Roman capital, not to mention his help to the provinces. This is the famous Colosseum type, but actually it was in the first place was known the theater of Vespasian or the Flavians. This is a coin minted during after he passed away in the name of Duus Titus, but the Flavian amphitheater was started to be built by Vespasian during his time. It was a huge undertaking, and he managed to find money between all the troubles to rebuild the city and provide entertainment to the people of Rome. Tax remissions are often advertised on coins, and these are mostly base metal coins. You wouldn't expect something like that from Caligula, but here is quadrans issued during the time of Caligula. Augustus had started that tax of 1 denarius in 100 on all sales. I call it the first GST. And Tiberius had reduced the tax to 1 denarius on 200, so 50 half denarius on 100. But in the year 39, the full tax was taken off by Caligula, as this inscription testifies. There are historians and numismatists that challenge this theory, but they haven't come up with a reliable explanation that will discredit this one. Here is a very interesting coin by Nerva. There's not much to say about Nerva. However, his reign was only 2 years. However, his achievements are not to be underestimated. And one of the achievements is lifting of the postal tax in Italy. On this coin, Nerva advertises his reform of the system, promising the imperial government would cover the cost of imperial transport. So during the time of Augustus, they imposed a tax on the postage system. People with power used all the means, and sometimes to the extent to exploit people's people for transportation. And on this coin, we see 2 mules freed from their yokes. In the background, you see the yokes of the car. And they are grazing in opposite directions. And the title or the legend simply says, Vehicula Tonia, Italia Remisca, and with the permission of the Senate, of course. And Nerva did more to gain popularity among certain people in the Roman Republic or Roman Empire. Sometimes this is, well, it says the Jewish tax has been abolished, but actually it's not a tax that was imposed on the Jewish people, but on the people that were considered Jewish. Even though they claimed they were not Jewish, nobody cared for them. So in the Jewish practice, no matter where you lived, you had to support the temple, and you would pay a certain amount of money to the temple as a tax. And the Romans simply took that over, and they imposed that onto everyone that they considered Jewish. On this coin, Narwa simply says that the poll tax is abolished for those who declare they are not Jewish. So it's a very, very interesting piece, yet it is wonderfully depicted on a coin. Among the nicest examples of tax abolitions is this one. It's so beautifully pictured. Here, there is a lictor, and most likely it is actually the emperor himself, holding fasces and setting light to a heap of paper in front of 3 citizens. So it's that cancellation. The emperor voluntarily remitted to his subjects all the arrears owing to his treasury on account of tributes, revenues, or other debts amounting an immense sum of money, and that he caused the notes and bonds relating to the heirs to be burned in the form of Trajan. We see coins on which the emperor addresses the army, and they are all advertised as ad locutio cohortum. And interestingly, some of these coins come from certain emperors that had nothing to do with the army or military, especially Caligula, and you can say the same thing for Nero. You can certainly say that for Hadrian, even though he didn't have many military campaigns, I'm sure he needed the support of his army, and at certain stages of his service, he addressed them. And you can say the same thing for Gordian III, being a young emperor, a child emperor. As you can see on the reverse of this coin, he's depicted larger, and there is a soldier, most likely Praetorian prefect. His father-in-law is supporting him while he is addressing to his army. Restitution issues are common on Roman imperial coinage. And the largest one is seen on the coinage of Trajan, Trajanus. But was Trajan really trying to restitute or show his respect to the previous nobles of the Roman Empire, or was it demonetization of the Roman coinage? The truth is, actually, the Roman finances were at the brink of another disaster when Trajan became emperor, and the metal was debased dramatically, especially silver, and the weight was reduced, and he had to do something about that. And the reason why Trajan, he was a soldier emperor, and he was a good soldier, and his first aim was Dacia or Dacia, modern Romania, because they supposedly had a huge treasure, and he needed money immediately, and he had to fight for it. But the coinage during his time was not reputable enough. Let's put it that way. The weight and the pureness of metal was so undependable that he had to do something about that. And what he did was he collected all the coins that he could collect from the hands of the people and melted them down and restruck them in reduced weight. But he used this in such a way that he called it restoration of ancient coinage of the Roman people. And it is so extensive. It's unbelievably extensive. Whatever you can imagine that was minted before him, but only those that he respected, he reminted, or he used their images on obverses and reverses of his restitution issues. Some incredible architectural types appear on Traianus's Sestertius at that time. And he built a new port, and this is an interesting depiction of the second port that he built. And he renovated and added other buildings around the Circus Maximus, and then of course the Forum Boarium, and it is also advertised there. And of course he created a new forum for himself, and the famous column with incredible decorations. Hadrianus created a different type of restitutory series on which he advertised how he restored certain provinces. And he did this in all three metals. This is for Africa. And as you see, it's in three metals. He has the same image. And Hispania and Gallia. He does have other provinces. Apparently there is one for Cilicia, which I would be very interested in seeing. I read that it exists, but I just cannot see an example. During his time, his favorite, Antinotes, is also depicted on coins, but mostly on metals, probably after he was drowned in the Nile. There's no coinage minted in the name of Antinos in Rome. In fact, Hadrian was very unpopular in the city when it comes to his relationship with this young man. However, his extraordinary image appears on large medallions minted in the provinces. Then comes the year of 5 emperors. Commodus was not a worthy son to Marcus Aurelius. but he was helpless. He took over, and it didn't last very long. And after he was assassinated, Pertinax took over. Despite the short reign, he minted an enormous amount of coinage in all three metals. And when you look at the gold and silver, especially gold, it's mind-blowing to understand how many dies were created to mint his gold coinage. And then, of course, you can imagine silver coinage is more expensive and extensive, and bronze is even more extensive. You can imagine how much time they mint employees had to create so many dies and mint coins. Then comes Didius Julianus, a rich guy who thought he could purchase a throne for himself, which he did, but it didn't last very long for him. Again, the Mint of Rome quickly produced massive new issues for Didius Julianus. And the Praetorian, he promised to pay each soldier 25,000 sestertii. And the Praetorian Guard by this time was composed of 16 cohorts of 1,000 men each, which meant that Didius had to come up with a total of 40 million sestertii, 10 million denarii, and 400,000 aurei if he wanted to remain emperor. You can imagine his hardships. But even so, in such a short time, he managed to get his wife and his extremely beautiful daughter, Didia Clara, to appear on his coinage. So the turmoil continues, of course. Didius Julianus won't last very long. And in the meantime, Septimius Severus, not too far from Rome, puts his bid on the throne. And Pescennius Niger in Syria also it was hailed by his troops as emperor. So the struggle begins. There are the coinage of Pescennius is rare in that they were not minted at Rome. They were minted in the east, predominantly in Antioch, Cappadocia, at Caesarea, and at Alexandria, in two metals mostly. And Septimius Severus, knowing that he needed a strong ally, approached Clodius Albinus. Interestingly, Pescennius is Niger, black, and Clodius Albinus is white. So there were two contenders with names that are associated to colors. By the way, Pescennius was not black. According to some historians, his neck was dark, and that's why he was called Niger. And we don't know why Albinus has the name Albinus. Anyways, he promised to support Septimius Severus in his bid on the Roman throne. and immediately declared Caesar, and he started to, or actually Septimius Severus allowed the mint produce coins depicting him as Caesar. But after Severus's success over Pescennius Niger, and declaring that his son to be Caesar Caracalla, to be Caesar, and eventually Augustus, Claudius Albinus started to mint coins as Augustus, as we see on this example. And he had to be, he had to face the forces of Septimius Severus and defeated and finally eliminated. So this is the year of the 5 emperors. Caracalla's reform came at a time when, again, the Roman finances was at the brink of collapse. He introduced a new denomination that is widely called Antoninianus. It was supposed to be a double denarius, but it never achieved the weight of a double denarius. It was always under 6 grams. If you could find one that is over 150, it's really rare. So here is one that is 540 grams. And here, 1 year apart, you can see how the weight reduced. This is COS 3, 5.29 grams, and this is COS 4, it's 3.41 grams. Even during the first year of this reform, you see coins minted in a range between 550 to 350. So 2 grams of difference at the same time. It's a huge difference. Elagabalus managed to keep the weight, even though we see quite many examples in reduced weights. No Antoninianus during the time of Severus Alexander. He simply decided that it is not worthy of minting. However, following emperors went back to the reform of Caracalla and minted Antoninianus. Yet you can see what happens to that denomination. And during the time of Gallienus, silver wash was introduced, and on many coins, we can see that silver wash completely disappeared, and it's actually a copper coin. Now, going back to the Roman practice of minting coins in different places, I would like to talk about the Eastern mints. From the beginning, the Sistophoric tetradrachms continued their popularity in Western Anatolia. They were first introduced by the Pergamonese kings in the 2nd century BC, and they were the main means of exchange in that geography. So Augustus simply continued the practice, and mainly Pergamum, Ephesus, Nicomedia, and several other cities minted coins in the range of 10.5 grams to 12 grams. that they were the main means of exchange in that geography. Caesara or Kaisera in Cappadocia started issuing coins in most probably during the time of Tiberius, but there are certain coins that suggest that it started during the time of Augustus, but not decisively. And Antioch in Syria was an active mint since the beginning of the or end of the 4th century BC, but since the beginning of the Roman Empire. The coinage in Syria comes in Greek though, and Egypt continued to mint coins in a different denominational system, even though they are sometimes called tetradrachms. Augustus, knowing the importance of keeping the empire intact and the provinces loyal to the imperial power, allowed the provincial cities to mint coins in their names. But that privilege was subject to the permission of the emperor. And you can imagine that city officials traveling to Rome, unless they have a consul or proconsul in their province through whom they can communicate, traveling to Rome, seeing some senators to approach the emperor and obtaining or purchasing the privilege to have the permission to mint coinage. Yet the system was very, very effective, very widespread. Literally, the province of Asia, known to be a province with 500 cities, minted coins for almost 350 years from the time of Augustus. Here is a coin of Smyrna for Nero and Poppaea, and on the reverse is their famous citizen Homer. And here is a coin from Tarsus in Cilicia for Maximinus. Judgment of Paris, very well-known mythological story, is wonderfully depicted on the reverse of this coin. Here is another incredible story, the invention of Owls. Apparently, Athena invented it, and while puffing it, other goddesses made fun of her, said that she looked very ugly with her puffy cheeks. So she throws them away. But in the meantime, in the background, Marsyas is watching her blowing the pipes. And as soon as she throws them in the river, Marsyas runs and grabs it, and he learns how to play the owls. And then, as the story goes, he challenges even Apollo, god of music at that time, which cost his skin. So the whole mythology is depicted on these coins. And here is another beautiful story on a coin of Abydos in Troas for Septimius Severus. Leander is swimming across the Hellespont, and his lover, Hero, is holding a lamp to show him his way. And even you see the fish, dolphins in the sea. The the imagination of the artists on these provincial coins is incredibly endless, and there is so much to learn from these coins. Now, going back to Commodus, he was not a good emperor. He was a disgrace to his father, yet numismatically, he or his officials, his mint officials, created some of the most beautiful medallions and coins for him. He was a megalomaniac, and he demanded that Rome is named Colonia Lucia Annia Commodiana. Its citizens were Commodiani, and the Senate to be known as the Senatus Commodianus Fortunatus. Who was to challenge him? No one, and at that time, he must have ordered his mint employees to create images that would match his megalomania. And on this one, we see Janiform bust of Commodus and Janus, both bearded and laureate. And on the reverse, you have Tellus, reclining, resting, left hand on basket filled with fruit and holding with her left hand wine branch. It's a whole scene of the earth, and he claims that the earth firmly established during his time. Another beautiful depiction of the port. And these coins or medallions were minted in various different ways. And this one is just a typical bronze, but this one is bimetallic, brass and copper. And on this one, he is depicted with Marcia. Most probably his concubine, in the guise of Mars or Minerva, or sorry, Roma or Minerva. And here he is depicted in his heroic appearance on both sides. And finally, he, well, his father also claimed that their ancestry goes to Hercules, but he took it one step ahead, and he depicts himself in the fashion of Alexander the Great on both sides of this incredibly beautiful bimetallic medallion. Philippus the First, known as the Arab, minted some coins. His time is not one of the most brilliant periods of the Roman imperial history, and his coinage is average. Not so bad, but not so great. But in the year 248, it was the 1000th anniversary of Rome, and some incredibly beautiful medallions were minted in his name. And here is one of them. And apparently some incredibly rich festivals and games were held at that time. And on this coin, we see the family and the Circus Maximus with some chariot race is going on. His wife and himself and his son were the continuous subjects of his coinage in extraordinary art, I should say. Most emperors issued medallions without SC. That means these were issued by the emperor himself without the intervention of the Senate. That's why we don't see SC on these coins. And we see some extraordinary art and history and messages on these coins. On this one, Salus standing, resting on the shoulder of Asclepius. It is called Asclepius here, but I don't think it's Asclepius, even though it is holding a serpent staff. I believe it is the emperor himself. Emperor is guised in the fashion of Asclepius. Yet Hygieia, it's most likely, the daughter of Asclepius, is there helping him. And there is a column here surmounted by Priapus. So the emperor is bringing happiness, health to the empire. The message is very, very clear. On this one, we see a galley, a ship coming under the arches of a bridge over the Tiber. On the prow is a serpent, and there is apparently an island in the middle of the river on which they built an Asclepius temple. And this is the depiction of Asclepius being brought from Athens into Rome. And another extraordinary example of art and propaganda by Marcus Aurelius. It is the two emperors, Lucius Varus and Marcus Aurelius. They are distinctively and remarkably depicted, consistent with their likenesses on this coin. And again, another medallion for Lucius Varus. The reverse is anapigraphic, just like the reverse of the Marcus Aurelius one, but the message must have been clear to the people, or the people that they were designed to be given. We see medallions for empresses as well as emperors. Here is one for Faustina, wife of Antoninus Pius. They are mostly associated to certain gods and goddesses. In this case, the empress is associated with Ceres, and Triptolemus is riding a serpent Biga and throwing seeds, and the empress is opening her palm to grab the seeds so that she can give it to the people. And Faustina, the younger daughter of Antoninus Pius and wife of Marcus Aurelius, was known to be a beautiful woman, and she is here associated with Venus in a very, very beautiful scene. And then Lucilla, wife of Lucius Varus, is depicted on this coin, being a virtuous woman and a priestess of the Vestal virgins. They also created medallions with a frame. This one is for Nero. Obviously, it is from a coin, so they didn't have any problem with that. And it was a coin minted by the Senate, but it was put into a medallion. On this one, it was most likely designed as one piece. This one looks like two pieces. It has to be two pieces, but this one was designed as one piece. The reverse image is interesting. There are three birds, and the eagle represents Jupiter, peacock, Juno, and owl, Minerva. The same type is seen on an unframed medallion. Again, it's a medallion, it's not a coin. And we see that on the coin, on a medallion of Antoninus Pius, not Hadrian. And this is an interesting piece for Marcus Aurelius as Caesar and Marcus Aurelius as the emperor. These are one piece, so they were, the flans were cast and then they were minted. We also see gilded medallions. So at some point, they decided to make those copper coins look like gold. And they used a gilding system that is not exactly known how, but this one is one of the best preserved examples. The gilding was lost here a little bit, but other than that, it looks quite intact. And you can see how magnificent the medallion looks here. Tresviri monetares. They were first introduced during the Roman Republic, representing the officials presiding over the minting of gold, silver, and copper coins. Their personifications were first used on a coin of Commodus during the imperial period. And we see some extraordinary examples minted in the name of quite many emperors afterwards. I only have 4 examples here, but during the Tetrarchy, especially, end of 3rd century and beginning of 4th century, we see quite many of them minted. They were minted for special purposes. Even though this one for Commodus was just a Sestertius, it was not a metal, but all the others are metals, and they were issued apparently the first year of the reign of an emperor to distribute to dignitaries, high-ranking soldiers, so on and so forth. I would like to talk about Constantinus I towards the end of my presentation. After a long struggle in the western and eastern part of the empire, Constantinus proved to be the most skillful in terms of military skills and administrative skills among his peers. And he decided to move the capital from Rome to Constantinople, or Byzantium, as it was known at that time. And here we have two medallions struck to appreciate and advertise the new capital. On this coin, Rome is enthroned, but it represents the Roman state in Constantinople. And on this one, the city is enthroned in the Asian style, I should say. The city goddess Tuken, or Tiken, was famous and depicted on coins of many provincial cities. And here, Constantinus used the same image to depict his new capital. But I guess this one is one of the most remarkable medallions of that period. You have to look at this coin and study it for hours to see how much information is placed on both sides of this medallion. But the most important message is the welfare of the people, Salus Republicae, on the reverse. We should talk about the Roman usurpers. They appeared in difficult times, especially when Valerianus Senior was captured by the Persians. The empire went into a turmoil, and usurpers popped up like mushrooms after a rainy day. Here we see Pacatian in Viminaciu, Western Central Europe, Jotapian, Quetus, Macrianus, even he minted civic coins, and so many others. Baballatus, Domitius Domitianus, Martinian, Procopius, and there are many others. They're interesting numismatically and historically to study. And also that they show that the minting of coinage to support a position became a standard practice at that time. The first sign of authority was having your name on a piece of metal, especially valuable metal, even though the metal of these coins are not so valuable. But there were monetary revisions after Valerianus. As you see here, Antoninianus continued to exist, but never in the form that it was first introduced during the time of Caracalla. But during the time of Diocletian, he introduced a new silver coin called Argentius, and good metal and good weight. However, it wouldn't last very long. And during that time, actually, he introduced the silver-washed follis. Impressive, but it wouldn't last very long. So then Magnentius introduced this light milliarens types, and finally Constantinus II introduces silica. It was a coin that was first introduced in Caesarea and Cappadocia many years before Constantinus, but he also used the same one. And then we see the Ophikina names and so many other information, so much other information we see on them. And finally, Constantine with his gold coinage. There are quite many other emperors who introduced some very remarkable coins that depict the happenings of their time period. And they're all worthy of a presentation. However, given the time limits we have and knowing that this is just an introduction, I just wanted to give you this much. But this is a 500-year of continuous activity of mints in Europe, in Asia, in the Middle East, and in Africa. And every period is extremely interesting and full of information. So while researching for this presentation, I came across some coins that you would not see in any catalog, or nobody talks about them. So apparently, Trajan had this habit to sticking his tongue out when people made a mistake. So he was just making fun of them. And also some empresses had monstrous noses, and no historian tells you about them, but here we have a coin, and to support that, here we have Julia Domna, and here her sister, Julia Maesa. They both have monstrous noses. Have you ever heard or read anything about these people?
No.
Not really. Well, here you know. Of course, this is tongue-in-cheek. These are all die breaks, or these all happened as a result of die breaks. I'm sure Julia Domna and her sister Julia Maesa didn't have monstrous noses, and it is, what is interesting is the way they engraved Trajan's mouth. There are many examples with die breaks right at the tip of his mouth, and it is like he's sticking his tongue out. But actually, we don't know if he had something like that, a habit like that. And again, further reading is available on this topic. There are literally hundreds of documents and websites to study and read about the Roman coinage. So it's an area worthy of research for a lifetime. That's how I would like to put it. And the next talk will be on the later Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. So this is the end of my talk today, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.